The day they changed the office locks, they didn't call me. I found out when my key stopped working. No warning, no discussion. Just a message sent through silence. You're no longer part of this. What they thought was an ending became my unfair advantage. Because when you're locked out of the family business, you finally see how it really works. Family businesses are complicated. They mix loyalty with hierarchy, emotion with finance, tradition with control. And when conflict enters that system, it doesn't just threaten income. It threatens identity. Being pushed out of a family company isn't just a professional setback. It feels personal. Betrayal wrapped in paperwork. But here's the bigger question. What happens when exclusion becomes freedom? Today's story isn't just about revenge. It's about innovation versus tradition, adaptation versus ego, systems versus sentiment. And by the end, you'll understand how sometimes the greatest advantage comes the moment you're forced out. Omar grew up inside the business. His father and uncles owned a regional food distribution company, warehouses, delivery trucks, retail contracts. As a teenager, he stocked shelves. In university, he studied supply chain management, hoping to modernize operations. When he officially joined full-time, he introduced ideas: inventory tracking software, digital ordering platforms, data analytics for demand forecasting. The older generation listened politely, then ignored most of it. We've done it this way for 30 years. Relationships matter more than software. Don't fix what isn't broken. At first, revenue was stable. But stable doesn't mean secure. The market was changing. Competitors were digitizing. Retailers wanted faster reporting. Margins were tightening. Omar saw risk. The board saw tradition. Tension escalated when he proposed investing in automation technology. It required capital. It required change. And most importantly, it required trust in his vision. Instead, they saw it as impatience. At the quarterly family meeting, his proposal was dismissed. One uncle said something that stayed with him. You're young. You think you know better. This company exists because of us. A month later, responsibilities were reassigned. Then access permissions were reduced. Then came the lock. Officially, it was called restructuring. Unofficially, it was removal. Family disagreements are painful. But business exile? That's transformative. The first few weeks were difficult. Not financially, as he had savings. Emotionally, when your identity is tied to a family legacy, losing access feels like losing history. But distance creates perspective. Omar began researching industry reports. He analyzed competitors. He noticed something significant. Mid-sized retailers were underserved. Large distributors focused on volume. Small suppliers lacked reliability. There was a gap in the middle. Flexible, tech-enabled mid-tier distribution. The very model he once proposed. And here's where the mindset shift happened. Instead of trying to return, he decided to rebuild. He didn't have warehouses. He didn't have trucks. But he had knowledge. And knowledge scales faster than assets. He began with a lean model. Outsourced logistics partnerships. Cloud-based inventory systems. Transparent pricing dashboards. Real-time delivery tracking. Instead of building heavy infrastructure first, he built digital coordination systems. Retailers loved the visibility. They could track shipments live, monitor stock levels, forecast demand with shared data tools. Within 6 months, he secured 5 steady clients. Within a year, 15. What differentiated him wasn't lower pricing. It was responsiveness. While traditional competitors relied on phone calls and manual logs, his company operated with dashboards and automation. And markets reward efficiency. Eventually, some retailers who previously worked with his family's company switched, not out of loyalty to him, but because the service model was stronger. This is important. He didn't ruin their business through sabotage. He outperformed it. Revenue isn't emotional. It follows value. Over time, the family company began losing contracts. Their operating costs were higher. Their systems slower. Their reporting delayed. Modernization that once seemed optional had become necessary. But adaptation is harder when pride blocks perspective. One evening, at an industry networking event, Omar saw his uncle across the room. The tension was real, but so was the respect. Because business doesn't lie, market share had shifted. Growth rates told the story. When they finally spoke, it wasn't hostile. It was measured. You built something fast. Yes. You used the ideas we rejected. Yes. There was no apology. But there was acknowledgement. And sometimes acknowledgement is more powerful. On the surface, this sounds like revenge, but the deeper lesson is about adaptability. Family businesses often struggle with innovation because legacy creates comfort. Comfort resists change. Change creates discomfort. But markets don't care about tradition. They respond to efficiency, transparency, and responsiveness. Omar's success wasn't fueled by anger. It was fueled by data. He identified market gaps, structural inefficiencies, changing consumer expectations, and he built around them. The real difference? He wasn't trying to protect the past. He was designing the future. There's a universal principle here. In any field, education, technology, media, finance, when established systems reject new ideas, those ideas don't disappear. They migrate, often to competitors. History shows this repeatedly. Innovation frequently comes from those pushed outside traditional structures. Because exclusion removes constraint. When you're no longer defending legacy, you're free to redesign it. Another key insight. Being locked out removes emotional attachment. Emotional attachment clouds strategic clarity. Distance sharpens it. Have you ever been excluded from something you helped build? A business? A project? A decision-making circle? Did you spend your energy trying to regain entry? Or did you build an alternative? Because sometimes the door closing isn't rejection. It's redirection toward ownership. And ownership feels different than permission. They locked him out of the family business. But in doing so, they unlocked something else. Freedom to innovate. Freedom to experiment. Freedom to build without legacy pressure. He didn't destroy their company through hostility. He outgrew it through evolution. And in the end, the most powerful response to exclusion is expansion. Because when you build something stronger outside the gate, you don't need the key anymore.